Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn. I'm very happy to be here today hanging out with you. I hope you caught our last stream with Dale Bagini on creating a custom character. We're going to be doing something a little bit different, and we're joined by Australian artist Joy Chiang. So hi, Joy. Welcome back to Adobe
Hi,
Live.
everyone. Thank you for having me again.
Great to have you back. I love having you on. We don't have a lot of artists on Adobe Live, a lot of illustrators, creators, animators, and that kind of thing, but we get to kind of talk a little bit about art, which is always lovely with you, and we get to see all your fantastic art, which is also super cool. So
I feel
thank
like
you.
every time I come on, there's a different medium.
Right. Yes, I know. And I saw before when I was preparing to have, preparing for the show, you have a little tagline on your Instagram, one medium at a time, which
Yeah.
which is so appropriate, I think, because yes, I think that's so true. Like with all these kind of emerging mediums, particularly with AI or assisted AI and how that works into a professional's workflow, you are very much our go-to person, I think. You're an Adobe partner this year as well. So yeah, it's always great to kind of experiment a little bit, talk about how these things kind of fit into a creative's workflow, I suppose,
Yes, definitely.
which is lots of fun. And that's what we're doing today. So welcome everybody in chat that's watching live or on demand. I'll let Joy kind of jump into what we're going to be covering today, but there's a couple of new features and things like that. The main place to go to see any of the new stuff that's happening is firefly.adobe.com. And you'll see there's lots of things that kind of just pop up, things in beta, things that are moving from beta, into kind of public or retail. And you can check out a lot of stuff there. And that's where we'll be talking about sort of the Firefly Boards, which I think Joy and I are both kind of excited about.
Yes.
It's actually a cool little feature. But Joy, do you want to just kick us off telling everyone a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into the stream?
Yeah, sure. So I am Joy and I'm based in Melbourne. I started painting first when I was on maternity leave, and I really enjoyed the creative process. It really just kind of took me out and gave me back some of my own time with kids and dogs and all the family related activities. And I think since then, I feel like it's been such a amazing creative journey that I didn't want to give it up. So then every time I went on maternity leave, I picked up a different thing to learn. And I found the learning process so enjoyable that I started doing digital artworks and animation. And then that's when AI started to take off. And then I started experimenting with some of the Firefly models. And I really enjoyed how that has added to my workflow. And then now I kind of mix up all the different mediums, just kind of playing with new ideas all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, there's always new mediums and new ways to kind of remix artwork and things like that, which we're going to
Mhm.
talk about today, which is super cool. Well, thank you for that. But yeah, I'll leave it to you. Do you want to take chat a little bit about what we're going to talk about today? We'll just get stuck into
Yeah,
it.
sure. So, one of the new Firefly products is actually Adobe Firefly Boards, and it's kind of like an infinite canvas where you can just drop all your ideas. There's really good examples already on the web page that you can just remix the file where it's organized very neatly for you to kind of use those as a starting point. But I think for me, I will open up. Actually, I think I already have it open here. I literally created a dump of like some of my past work. And because it's an infinite board, you can just drag and drop everything and anything, including video files, including animations that I've done, physical paintings, AI generations. And the cool thing is within the board, you can do your AI generations and remix a lot of the stuff to get new ideas. It started because every time I go to my ceramics class, I actually lose track of the pieces that I have in progress, the ones that's been bisqued, the ones that's been glazed. And then the next week I come in with like a kind of blank look on my face going, oh my God, I can't remember where I'm at.
Right.
But also just for inspiration, I'm like, it's nice to see the stuff I've already created. So I'm not making more of the same things, bringing home, stuffing my kitchen with more mugs
Right.
or more bowls. I was like, oh, I need this new thing. So then that's one way of using it, how I kind of really wanted to kind of keep track because I have a file of all my artworks and it's like a portfolio, but kind of scrolling through them is not the same as kind of just looking at this one image and
Mm.
quickly be like, yes, this is what I have in the oven. This is what still need to paint. So I think for record keeping, if you're a visual person, it's been really helpful for me.
Mm.
And then that, when you have like all your physical artworks in the one spot, you can kind of get a sense of like your style, the color schemes that I'm drawn to, the different compositions that I like, and just kind of see the bits that kind of tie it together. I was going to do like one for physical sculptural stuff, and then I found like my old UU painting, and then it looks just like one of my physical
Right.
paintings, and that wasn't on purpose, but it's just nice to see the linkages between the work that you've created over the years. So I think then having this as an ingredient almost, you can then start remixing some of the stuff. So this is something I created in Photoshop a while ago using some of my AI exports and a physical painting. This was
Mm.
actually an animation too, but I dropped this in before I realized you could actually drop animations. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to find, I think it was this painting that I used the color scheme for. So you can kind of see the synergies and the flow of it, but it just kind of made it a bit more surreal with some of the realistic elements.
Mm.
So I think it's really cool to see these connections where previously, like, I'm the only one that knows this came from this painting that I created like a few years ago, but I really love the color palette of it. And then so I think it's really nice seeing them together
Mm.
and having these. And then over here, I have some of the digital creations. So underneath these, oh, so cool. Having just zooming in, these are like 3D animations. So you can kind of group them as you go, but you can kind of quickly see them all in the one spot and having them animate. I think is really cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I didn't even know. Like, I played around with boards a little bit, but I
Yeah.
didn't even know you could have video inside it, which is really cool. And they're all playing at the same time,
Yeah,
so
I know.
it's pretty
And it
sweet.
doesn't lag. I'm really
Mm.
surprised at the speed because usually, like when things launch in beta, there's always going to be some teething issues. But so
Yeah.
far, this has been really easy to work with because some of these files are pretty big. They're like for a short animation that you export in a 3D program, they can take up a lot of room. So
Mm.
I find it really useful just even having this access, and then I'll take a screenshot of a specific moment of that animation. So for example, these ones are just one screenshot of the animation that I created because I like that composition, for example, and then I'll use that as an ingredient to then continue. So yeah.
Nice.
And this one was similar to the other one where I've used a physical painting for some of the artworks and then I've collaged it with some of my AI creations, like the flowers and the building. And then I actually animated this one, but I couldn't find the animation. And then I was like, I wonder if I can just prompt it to kind of show what it actually looked like.
Right.
And this came out so nice. It was actually like, this is probably better. And it only took a few
Oh wow,
seconds. It
isn't
was
that
quite sad.
funny?
Yeah.
So you,
But
yeah,
sometimes
you,
it's very hit and miss. Like you get
yeah.
either a really epic one or it's like, oh, definitely not what you thought it
It's
was going to be.
it's such a
Mm.
crazy world. It kind of in a situation where it's like, well, I mean, even like maybe it was somewhere on a hard drive somewhere, but it's almost faster to just be like, oh, could you just prompt it again? Just make it for me again, rather than me trying
I
to find the
know. Well,
original.
the one that I did, I actually animated it in Adobe Express.
Right.
Kind of
Right.
like the workflow we did last time, where
Yeah.
I'd like layer kind of almost like a video collage, and then you kind of see the different parts animating and you can loop it.
Mm.
Whereas this kind of quickly gives you that feeling. So I think if I were to do something similar really quickly, I could probably use the video module just to see if the movements are like the type that I like, or if there's anything that I don't like before I add the layer. Because
Mm.
sometimes it takes a long time to crop out and mask and all of that before you do the actual animations. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
if I move
I
that
noticed a
one,
little logo up the top right hand corner in some of these. Before there was a
mm.
CR, which I don't know what that meant,
Oh
but this
yes,
one's
I
FI,
think
which
it's
is
the content
Firefly.
credentials.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Like
There's
I think
one.
because I imported it from like my previous
Mm-hmm.
export, and then it's got the source where I've created this in Firefly, and I just directly downloaded it and then dragged it in.
Cool.
Actually, while we're here, so you can kind of see I used the same color palette for these two. This one was done directly in here, where I think you can see the past generations. Whereas this one actually uses Model 3,
Mm.
which is different to Model 4. So I like to try the same prompt using the different models to see what kind of look I prefer.
Mm.
Like, for example, I really like this kind of pastel-y, kind of almost fake painterly style. And same with this original one. But you're not going to get that if you use model 4 because it's a very realistic photorealism type
Right.
of finish compared to this one where you can kind of see some of the textures coming through from the original one.
Mm.
I
Wow.
think I used the composition of a landscape. That's why it looks so different. But at least this way I know, I think for this style, I want to use model 3. If I want something realistic, then I'll use that.
Yeah.
And then I think because of how my brain works, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to like mix my abstract landscape with this flower thing? And then now it's kind of giving me this,
Right.
which I think is so nice. And then I might just park that there. And then the next time I was like, oh, when I'm building a landscape, I might use this as a reference photo, or I might make a new animation out of it. And then I also put in the ones that I like and that I don't like, because this one's kind of taking it too literally. Cool. Yeah, so I think it's nice to capture stuff that you like that and stuff that you don't like. And then if you're just starting out generating AI images, always keep the ones that you really love, because once the model changes, you might forget the prompt, you might forget what you did to get there. And then if you have the image, you can still use that as an ingredient when you start mixing things further. So for example, I think because this is thinking back of how my brain started to function. I started mixing my ceramics with some of the floral creations I made in Firefly, because I wanted to make some assets of my ceramic stuff. Like I was kind of cataloging the stuff I've made so I don't remake the same things, so my kitchen has enough space to keep them
Right.
all. But 2, I was like, if I was ever to sell them, I think it would be really cool to make my own promo using some of these assets. And then I
Right.
didn't want to create like a AI version of something that was real. So I was like, what can I do to put in the vases, in the cups that it's AI created? So then I wanted to be like awkward or weird, that it's hard for you to actually capture in real life. So then I was like, oh, what about if it was like floating or anti-gravity or things like that? So I started getting some like crazy ideas, just kind of smashing these pieces around to see if I could make animation loops. And then I really liked how these turned out.
Oh, that's
so I was
cool.
like,
I
oh,
like that
maybe I
one.
can then input my own artwork, my own ceramic pieces into these to start animating. But the first thing I wanted was kind of just getting really nice florals and kind of abstract things. I also
Yeah.
started like playing around with like veggies and things so that it would look more interesting. So this was one where I put in my own cup that I made recently with some of the vegetation exports, and then I just wanted to see like how it would remix, and then I use Photoshop to kind of mix them up. But the cool thing about this is I think this took a lot of like effort to find the right composition in Photoshop, because you're layering and you're changing. Whereas now with the boards, like I literally just got this image, removed the background, and then I was like, oh, let's remove the background for this one, and then just chucked it in to see what it could look like. And then within Firefly Boards, I could then generate this really quickly. And then if you generated it using Firefly Boards, it's got a preloaded prompt that I actually use for this one. So you can see in the first frame, I use the artboard I created directly in Boards using that hand holding the mug. And then I just said hand holding mug, flower growing time lapse.
Right.
And then it just generated this similar thing. I think if I wanted the last frame, I could probably pick, I don't know, something else.
Yeah.
No, that was a video.
You could pick like an end frame, right? And then it tries
And
to
then
tween the animation between it.
Yeah. So that's how I started looping. I think in tomorrow's session, I'll go in a bit detailed about how I do that seamless loop.
Yeah.
I think the basis is pretty much like the first and the last frame's got to be the same. But then it's also nice if they loop really nicely and it doesn't just jolt to something new. So I think you have to think about the colors that you choose in between, the like where the items are, how it's then moving together. So I think it's really fun thinking about, I guess, cinematography is probably a stretch, but thinking about the camera movements and like what would make the transitions smooth. And
Yeah.
there's certain things in like the video module that you can actually choose, like move from right to left or left to right. So then if you're thinking about a loop or a turntable movement, it's the same direction and you're not kind of making it work too hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think I animated this one, but I didn't drop it in. But it was really cool because this is a cake stand I'm currently waiting to come out of Bisque. So I haven't painted it yet. And then while it was generating the video, it actually had a view from the top where it's added some color. And I was like, ugh. So I was like, I'm definitely not adding
Don't do
color
that.
to my
Don't do that.
don't add color, which I think is quite funny.
And can you show us kind of just how the remixing works? I think just
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
on a
yeah.
video we're going to cover that in more detail tomorrow, but even just like on a static maybe piece of
Yes.
your artwork and kind of
Yes.
how that process might work.
So this is one where I remixed this one. Make it bigger. So this is an export from one of my 3D models, or I don't know what you call them, 3D animations. And it was just a screenshot of that because I really like the color scheme. And then I added a composition. So what I found is if I pick compositions like a tree or flowers in a vase, it takes it very literally, and I kind of don't like that static finish. And I think one of the things I really enjoy about AI is like the really random surprises or the weird things that happen, stuff that you kind of not logical, even though like large language models are mostly based around like things that are predictable, things that are very literal. So I think when I get the surprises, I really enjoy that. So for the composition, I sometimes like to just put in like a painting, something without too much structure. Because with landscapes or flowers, things can be quite predictable, whereas with
Right.
physical paintings, like these splotches. So if I take this sample and say I'll use maybe this one, and then I generate it. Even though the prompt I'm giving it, it's like leaves, twigs, things that are very literal, I just kind of want to see what it will do if it had a weird style and like a random composition. Then it kind of thinks outside the box a bit, and then the results are a bit more random. But at least the color schemes and things like that, I know I would like. And once the results are out, you can kind of see it's quite nice. So it's pulling colors and some of the structure from it, but it's a bit more random. Whereas if you give it a composition of the flowers in the vase, every single one of them will look very similar. Whereas in this one, you can kind of see there's a bit more variety. Like you've got branches coming from the left, coming from the right, coming from the bottom, and then this like very literal one. But at least you're not wasting all your credits on generating 4 the exact same things.
Right. Yeah.
And I find that if I remix directly in here, it gives me, I think it uses model 3, maybe the fast version, I think just to give you an idea of what things could look like. But I find the finishes are not as nice. Like you don't get the very crisp textures that you would get if you physically picked model 3 or 4. Like, oh, actually, maybe this one is 4. This one's quite nice. But you can kind of see it's not giving the same type of textures. Because this one I used a landscape mixed with my physical painting. So it's taken on the color scheme of the painting, but it's also added some painterly textures as well.
Yeah.
Which in this one, you kind of almost lose that except for the color because it's just so high definition landscape outcome. But from there, at least you can pick the bits that you like and you can tell it to say, maybe the composition is the one that you like. So for example, like I quite like this composition. It's not like your typical landscape with mountain lake at the front. I think this is something I might keep and then I'll just park it. So the good thing about the board is I just like keep chucking things in the board and then kind of decide if I want to use it later or not.
And I see that you've created your own little computer screen there, which is quite, I love that. And you have the shelf for your ceramics and the artboard over there.
This is just so I can find things easily.
Yeah.
Because the last one I created, it just like had groups blocks of things, and I was like losing track of where things
After a
were.
while, they would look the same, right? But
Yeah,
yeah, it makes
yeah,
sense. It's really
yeah.
cool. I love that.
Actually, I need to think of one for this. So these are like flowers that I used to make cake decorations for. But the flowers sometimes I use because I've made the physical flower, you can bend it however you want. So sometimes I don't want the flower to be straight on the stem because
Mm.
when you prompt those, it's very literal. Whereas these ones, I can bend it and actually really give it the exact outcome I want if I wanted to fit into a photo that I've taken of my ceramic, for example.
Mm.
I think that's an idea to be parked here.
Of the shelf.
And then actually this one I use this as a prompt to get these so you can kind of see the similarities. And if I reload what I used, the composition was like a random one, and I really liked how it randomly gave me like some of these lines that's kind of come through, which the others didn't. So I'm always on the lookout for these type of random finishes that might
Mm.
give me new ideas or new things. And then from this one, I was like, oh, what if I use this one as a prompt? So then I ended up getting these really cool outcomes that I really loved. So I used the same composition, but the style I picked one of my 3D models. It's like a blobby animation that's kind of like a liquidy thing that kind of explodes
Right.
over time.
Yeah.
But because I think this export was higher because it was like a PNG out of the animation. It had more detail because the mountains had some textures, but the bubbles were very smooth. It gave me a lot more variety in terms of the outcome, but the prompt was pretty much the same.
Mm.
So you can kind of see the details of some of the lines in the mountains that you got, but then it's also added the floral aspect that I asked for in the prompt. So I think this was a really cool finish that like I might steal some of these florals and re-prompt them on a green background, which I then can mask and add to some of my other animations later on. So this is how I then start collecting different assets I can then reuse because I don't want to go and animate a whole leaf motion if I'm not going to use it in a way that I know it's going to be productive because some of those things take so long to model.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a bit like that, isn't it? You're kind of collecting things and then
Mm,
categorizing them, or kind of going, okay, these go over here because I like the composition, I like the color,
mm,
so I've made a group over here. I like, this is something new and different. I don't have a use for it yet, but maybe later,
yeah.
stuff like that.
Like for example, these three are three. So they're the same model that I've modeled, and I made them into animation. But because I didn't like the color and the lighting that I used on some of them, I kind of readjusted it, and it took like 24 hours to export the whole loop again
Oh,
before I
wow.
realized I don't like it. So then. Whereas now I can kind of really quickly, just to see it move, if it's the color scheme I like, I can just take one. For example, let's use this as a video. Just want to see if it works. Maybe abstract sculpture, rotating, flipping, time lapse. Oh, it's waiting. That's probably going to give me some paint splatters, but at least this way I can kind of see using like maybe I just export a couple of frames and then I'll see it moving in the same lighting. I can really quickly decide, no, I'm not going to continue exporting the rest of the sequence because it'll take the whole night and then I'm going
Right.
to hate it the next morning. So I think there's a lot of room to play around these type of initial stages when you're ideating, or if you're just kind of getting to that final export before you decide on which color scheme.
Yeah.
Like for example, with these ones, they're the same chrysanthemum model that I made, but I didn't know which color scheme to go for. So each of these I've then separated and I made new materials for them, which took a long time. But if I kind of had something similar, so for example, this one, I use this kind of X-ray finish with a different compositions just to kind of blend it in to see if I like it with a background. And I was like, oh, it kind of looks quite nice. But then this is also quite nice as a standalone piece. So these are things that I previously would have wanted to do, but given the time limit and it just, yeah, it just didn't have that option. Whereas now I can quickly say, oh, like maybe I should go back to this piece and kind of add a background because it'll bring in more depth or whatever.
Mm.
Yeah, this is quite cool.
Wow, it's cool.
Oh, I think I dragged too many. Behind. Oh no, there's too many.
Is it trying to do things?
No, I just didn't see it. And the boards has been really easy to kind of just group, and then you can group them and then can make an artboard from the selection, and then it'll kind of just keep them all in the same spot. Oh, that's so cool. See, like the lighting looks a bit dull here, but using that kind of idea, you can kind of see within the same tones if it looks nice. Like some of these colors, I was like, they actually don't look very nice together. I might go back and change some of the materials and then re-export just a couple of frames before I export the whole sequence.
Right.
Yeah.
Looks like an abstract pufferfish spinning around.
Yeah. Yeah. It does look like a pufferfish. So quick.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy.
Yeah, well, it's really cool to see like your own artwork being uploaded as well as part of the workflow, which I think is really cool. Like I even think like from an illustrator or a graphic designer, even kind of perspective could be interesting, especially when stuff is in beta. I love this start where we don't really know where it's going to go or what the use case is ultimately going to be, or like the typical use case, and like where that kind of works. I had an interesting play around. I was just thought I would play around with different movements, like art movements. And so I was just doing like Bauhaus and Dada and Brutalism and stuff. And that was really interesting because you could just kind of keep kind of remixing to the point where particularly stuff that's like quite abstract is you can really kind of take it in really interesting directions and then meshing them together. And I could really see it being useful, I think, even just to understand like what makes some of those movements kind of what they are as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just take them in different directions, maybe get different ideas, and then maybe use that as your mood board to create something as well, which I think is like an approach that I'll probably do a couple of times.
Do you have them handy? Maybe you can jump in on the board and then put some in and then we can remix it.
Sure, let me see. Can you imagine if I just made that up and I hadn't done it?
Or even any of your
no, I've got it.
that you've previously exported.
That's fine. I got too carried away, so I did a bunch. So I guess that's the other thing as well. Some people may have seen my name floating around as well. So Joy had invited me to her board. We haven't done this before, so let's do it live.
Oh, this is so cool. A live collab.
But let's see if I can just copy and paste maybe. Whoa.
Oh, hello.
It came in.
Oh, this is so cool.
So big.
I'm honestly really surprised at how quickly things load and it's not really laggy. And this is all live.
Yeah. This is some of the Bauhaus stuff.
Cool.
I think everything on the left 4, actual artworks from the movement or artist interpretation. And then everything else on the right was generated, which I found pretty...
From these 4?
Yeah, from those 4 and maybe some others. I just grabbed a small selection.
I wonder what will happen if I like remix some of the hard edge stuff. Let's try it with like something random.
I think it's really cool. Like if you wanted to kind of create your own like abstract Bauhaus movement thing, like not just completely ripping it off and then doing the remix and then putting it on your wall, but then using some of these newly generated like abstract artworks and then maybe going into Illustrator or something or Photoshop and creating them and just using it as a bit of a template. You could kind of create your own like wall art, which I think would be really cool.
Let's see if we
There you go. We've added some futurism to to the artwork.
Oh no, this is a video. Let's change the composition to, I don't know, I find it much nicer when you do it as a separate prompt than if you just remix.
Right.
I think because it uses image 3 fast, and I think that doesn't give you as nice of a finish. So if I just use image 3, not even image 4, it'll give you very different results. Let's do the two to compare.
So what's your process of doing that? Are you selecting 2 or more pieces of work, and then how do
So
you
I
bring up the
put
prompt that you have there?
I just did abstract sculpture routine. I think this was from the one before
Right.
where I created the video. But look, how cool is this?
That's cool.
So now we have a abstract blobby Bauhaus finish. Oh, this is so nice. So this is 4 image Firefly 4.
Right.
It's really cool. I actually really like some of the framing and the hard edges.
That's cool.
That's very cool. I'm going to keep this now.
Nice. I guess it's like a whole nother thing, right? It's like, yeah, great. What are you
Yeah.
working on? Let's mesh our art styles together and see what comes out, and
Yeah.
then maybe do a collab from
Look,
there.
so if I use this as the first and last frame, you can generate the video. I reckon that would be really cool because it's. I didn't change the prompt, but if I added like explosions, smoke, I reckon that would look really amazing. Such a quick way to just like make a wallpaper for your phone.
Yeah.
I really love this. This looks like one that I actually like physically tried to like collage when I think Firefly Model 2 came out.
Mm.
I wonder if I can find it. It was like one of these ones. I don't have the. I think it was something. Yeah. See the videos. These are so nice. I find if you use 3D models, the textures get picked up really well.
Right.
Because of the shiny finishes, you get so much depth with the different materials that it then generates.
Oh, okay.
This looks like a face.
Like a photo of something that's 3D and it understands it's 3D? Is that what you mean?
Like this one I use the... this.
Or we're talking with video?
No, just your generations.
Right. How cool is that?
Super cool. Yeah, so I think because I use this one, which was a higher quality image,
Right.
it picks up like all the shiny surfaces, the texture surfaces, and it gives you more variety. Whereas if I use like something like this,
yeah,
it kind of doesn't go outside its creative sphere because it feels like it's more limited. So if you give it something with more range, it'll give you more range in the results.
Right.
Which is why I like mixing like really different things. Then you get stuff like this. That's a bit more unpredictable and I feel like it's a lot cooler. Collecting these, thank you. Put it in my little bank.
Add to your collection. Yeah.
Yeah, add to my collection. This is probably literally all my brain's on. I'm just like chucking stuff in and put it in the back of my head. I wonder if I remixed one of these with something like more shapy, it'll give us. Let's use this. I find the load prompt really good. Once you have it as a starting point, you can just then keep remixing and then you can adjust. I think, I can't remember how I got to, I think there was one where you can, sorry, not very. There was one where if it was like an empty slate, you can get prompt help.
Oh, okay.
And then it had certain suggestions. I'm just trying to remember how I got to that. But that was really handy to just kind of get it started. So if I do composition as this one and the style as, I don't know, this one.
And I think I saw it might have been in the demo that they did at Max announcing it before it was public, but there was a way where you could click into the image and then extract the description of it as well, which I thought
Yeah,
was really
yes.
cool. I don't know if that's live. I haven't done that
No,
myself.
it is live. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to remember. I think when I first had a blank slate, I could click on an image that wasn't preloaded, and then it would give me suggestions based on what
Right.
it thinks the image was, and then under it had like very detailed, very, very detailed.
Because that just saves you so much, right? Like you could create a mood board, which I guess is what this is, a more, you know, in one way, and kind of collect a whole bunch of things that you abstract from an abstract perspective or just from a visual perspective. Like you imagine a Pinterest board that you might have of pastel colors or something like that, or calm things or whatever it is, or posters that you really like. Maybe it's in a theme, and then you kind of bring that into something like this,
I think
and then
it's
you
here.
can extract.
So sub prompts.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There we go.
So in here you can choose the different things you like. I don't know if we just put some, and then it's got suggestions here.
Yeah.
So if I just copy whatever it says, you can, at least as a base, you can start adding it. I wonder what this will look like if I just use this as a style, and then the composition, let's choose one of the new ones and generate. And then I always like to do an image 3 and an image 4.
Right.
This is more just for me to know. It kind of helps you understand the models a bit better. So when you have an idea in your head that you want to try and export, you know which look you'll prefer, because, so for example, this one looks very literal because of the description. It was very detailed. Whereas because I like the abstract stuff more, like this is so much cooler. Even though it's an older model, my preference is probably for the left.
That's interesting. So the left is 3 and the right is 4, because going more in the area of realism.
Yeah. But if I was creating something that I needed, like an asset to like for example, I needed the rocks as a component of my artwork or my collage, this will be perfect. Whereas if I want something really random that's a bit more obscure, this will be really good.
Interesting.
So I think having these two side by side will help me in the future know which model I use, but also it saves the prompts, which is so good. And you can vary. Very nice. Now I have to remember, it's here, sub prompts. And then you can add random ones related to the subject or the style of the lighting. And then you can just copy. It's so cool. And they're very detailed. My only tip is that if you're using one of these prompts, they're usually very literal, like an end finish, because they're trying to describe something that was created that was very beautiful. So I think if you want to have fun and like get the random bits happening, I'd definitely edit the prompts before using it. But it's always nice to do it straight off the bat just to see what you get with the different models, because then you know if you're asking for a flower, what the stock standard flower would look like. And then you'll know, oh, if you don't want this type, you want something more bushy, shrubby, whatever, you can be a bit more descriptive in exactly what you want.
It's a great starting point. It's a lot easier to delete a couple of lines of text than it is to type everything out from scratch.
So if you just remix, you get kind of this, not dull, but like kind of very AI looking stuff. But then once you play around with it a bit more, the differences are huge in terms of the results. So just I think these were also just like a remix, a standard remix. So I think I asked for like a gradient, soft gradient as a background, but it didn't really pick up what I wanted. I kind of wanted this type of background, so you didn't really have to drive the direction. But if you see the results, you can kind of see where it got that idea from, and then you're like, okay, I need to be a bit more specific with this or not. Yeah, I think this is how I started in terms of like a flat lay. And then from that, I started remixing some of my colors and other artworks to get the exact color scheme that I wanted. And then the layout came after. So
Right.
it's, can kind of see how it started. Yeah.
That's cool.
Cool.
I like that. You do your own clippings from your garden and then bring in all your favorite
Yeah,
flowers and
yeah,
then lay them all out and
yeah.
bring them in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you can put it in your almost finished ceramic pieces. But I don't think I'll ever be able to do arrangements like this.
Yeah. Really cool.
Mm. Cool. So I think tomorrow I will go through like some of these before and afters, and then we can start animating and then looping them just to see what they will look like.
Yeah. That'll be cool. Yeah, I love that we can do all the video like within, as I said, I didn't really even realize that you could do it just within the artboard. So, well, that'll be cool. We'll check out tomorrow. So we'll be back at the same time tomorrow, unless there was anything else you want to cover today, Joy. But otherwise, I think we've done a pretty good job of a first look.
Yeah, I think just have a play and then put in anything and everything and then start mixing and then see what results you get. I think you'll be
Yes.
pleasantly surprised.
It's definitely one of those things where, like, you know, in a year, like the use case and where it evolves from here, like will be really interesting to see. This is obviously very that the like MVP of the that's right, MVP of the of what it will be with some of the like key ingredients baked in. But you can see on the left there's like some type, some shapes, like just your basic kind of stuff in there, and you can group it together, and it'll just be really interesting to see where it goes. So of course it's in the hands of everybody now. So I think just finding what the community wants to use it for, where it goes, and that kind of thing is always fascinating to me, because everything in AI has changed so much from day one when everything kind of launched.
But something like this would be so handy if you are talking to a client and you just kind of want to share some of the initial ideas.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing is if you send an email and you're like, do you prefer this or that? And then it's very limited in the conversation because they might like components of this versus that. And I think having this type of format, a collaborative kind of base to start those conversations is really cool. But also just like for storyboarding, anything like idea generating, it's really cool to have this visual mind map of things as you can add and take away from. I think it's really fun.
I mean, that's it. Like you do like kind of workshops with clients, and like I'll often use an interactive board or something just to kind of get the basic brief and direction out, and they're so valuable. You're going along a journey together. But this visual part is really difficult to do remotely. But yeah, maybe that's an amazing use case. You can just say, hey, bring in some examples of websites and logos that you like. We'll bring them in and use them as a reference, and I'll bring in some of kind of my style or whatever it is, or maybe some of the initial sketches, and we'll just kind of mood board this together and end up somewhere that we think we're pretty happy with. And then, you know, I'll go back and create it kind of from scratch. So I'm still creating all the work from scratch, but we're like aligned on the visual kind of output or something close to it at the end. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Or some other use case. So there we go. Jump on over. If you haven't checked it out yet, it is available to the public. You just need a web browser, which is really cool as well. Firefly.adobe.com. It's /boards, or you can just go there and you can select the boards from the top. It's in beta. Tell us what you think. But thank you so much, Joy. Thank you for this first look. This is the first time we've touched on it on Adobe Live Asia Pacific. So I'm very thankful that you could spend some time with us today.
No, thank you for having me again.
And we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be playing a little bit more with the video side of things as well. So hope to see you all then. Thanks again, Joy. And we'll see you all next time on Adobe Live Asia Pacific. Bye.
Bye-bye.